thank you to all our witnesses. I'd like to go on the record saying that pre-budget consultations that have this many witnesses at committee are very hard because there's so many great people ask questions. I wish each other committee would frankly take it upon themselves to dig deeper within their own remits and provide the government with some recommendations that they want to see in the budget. But I want to spend a few minutes with Governor Dodge. Governor, you mentioned a number of months ago that one of the things that the government can do, in fact, you said about all the feds can do to tame inflation is to slow their spending. Do I have that about right? That was in an interview that you provided.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. Just curious, the government top-line spending is about 28% above pre-COVID levels. So forget all about the COVID pandemic spending. Annual spending this year is up about 28% versus pre-COVID levels. Does that represent a slowing of spending in your mind?
In real terms, it is up, and in real terms, it's actually appropriate that it's up. It's a question of how much and what it is spent on.
If you think that the government really only has one lever with respect to inflation, were you surprised when members of the government claimed that the government's plan to bring inflation down is working when in 1 month out of 28% inflation dropped below the 3% target of the Bank of Canada?
This is going to take time to bring inflation down. Once we got off track, just as we know in the 70s, once we got off track, it takes time. And it takes a lot of effort on the part of the government, and it takes a lot of effort on the part of the central bank.
I appreciate that. One of the items driving inflation back up over 3% is volatility in energy prices. That's one of the key drivers. So do I have that right? You're much smarter than I am. If the government reduces the price or the taxes on the good that's partially driving inflation, and those price drops in the form of tax reductions are passed through the consumer, does it not stand to reason that that would have a lowering effect on inflation?
So you can lower a single price, right? Absolutely. By providing a subsidy or a tax, you can change a single price. And that's undoubtedly true. Can you change overall what's going on? To change overall what's going on, of course, what is important there from the government side is the balance, not a single price. And so to the extent that the government wanted to make a more rapid contribution, a contribution to a more rapid disinflation, then a balance between revenues and expenditure. We should have had much more revenue relative to expenditure than we have had. Absolutely. Directionally, that is absolutely correct. Any single price, what you're affecting is the relative prices of different products. And that's quite a different story than trying to deal with the level as a whole.
Thank you very much. You mentioned about debt service costs as a percentage of revenue. I think you've put out about, in your mind, there's a rule of thumb about 10 cents. We were close to 10. We were approaching 10 cents in the last budget. The last budget's economic projections, most economists believed that interest rates would be lower today and through the end of this year than they were at the budget. They're actually at least 1% higher. Debt service costs, and by the way, the government is rolling over $421 billion this year of debt. Debt service costs are going to explode, not to mention the losses at the Bank of Canada. What happens when we breach that 10 cents in your mind? What do we have to think about, and what's the government have to figure out in order to bring that number back down?
Well, if you're spending 10 cents out of every tax dollar you collect on servicing past debts, that obviously leaves you less to spend on providing current goods and services. And so the problem that we collectively face now going forward is that we're going to have growth of the economy, or growth of the base revenues of government, which is going to be equal to or perhaps even less than the interest rates. And so past debt, the burden of past debt will increase year after year rather than being eroded.
Thank you very much, Governor.